What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of these, all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to, provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. Well, this is a first. Bob and Dave, you guys have, how long have you guys known each other for?
Christ.
Technically,
16
probably.
years. No,
Is that
16 years. Yeah, going back to 2009.
I think it goes back earlier because I think you posted one or two of my sort of thoughts that I sent to you by email, and you actually posted it on 321 Goal before that.
That was before you deserted us.
I deserted you. How's that? I deserted you.
You went to that other website.
Well, the other website that I first started showing up at was Financial Sense with Puplava, remember?
Yeah.
Whatever happened, they're still out there. I just don't know. I just don't see them. I don't know if they do interviews or not.
Well, it's funny, okay, because you've been around a long time, too. There's a lot of people who were big 25 years ago and have never done anything. And he's one of them.
He's just disappeared. I think when he handed it over to his son.
Yeah.
I think it's Adam maybe. And so Jim was a bear, and Adam turned out to be much more bullish, much more new era. And I think that they might have lost readership because they had collected a bunch of people who are interested in hearing about how the doom and gloom. They're interested in hearing about the bad stuff. So
well, I've got to compliment you because naturally I've read all your books, and your 2025 was the first one that you actually were really negative in.
Well, that was because of my battles with the Zionists, so that didn't help.
Well, you understood that the ship's about to hit the fan.
Well, I think I decided that year I would lay it all out. I think I've been bearish the whole way, but I think I decided it was time to just leave it all in the field. And we should backfill that. So we first met when I sent you an email, I think, and you posted it, and it was under the pseudonym Thomas. And a couple things I posted. One was I think it was at 321 Goal. One was I picked on Warren Buffett for being a grifter. And it was called the something about St. Warren, and then I found out that that Michael Lewis had done the same thing probably 10 years earlier, and but I was talking about how Warren was a hoser, and he was like the mafia don with wearing a bathrobe, walking around the street trying to look innocent, and then, but the story, as the story goes, this year, you and Jeremy decided you were going to bind all of my annual reviews, which turns out to be, I think, 17 volumes total. And Jeremy, talk about may God have his mercy on his soul. He had to copy edit them all and sort of, and I had to go fix graphics and stuff, but he really left it all in the field. And it was about 4,000 pages, I think. I think that was the number.
This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. the simplest and most affordable way to own physical gold and silver. Physical gold is the only asset outside of the control of the government and banking system. They can print dollars, but they can't print gold. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike.
Well, here's what I would like you to do, because I have a very difficult time talking about the books. The books are unlike anything I've ever read. They are like a diary, but it's not a diary. And frankly, I think it's one of those things that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I think that when people realize it, I can go back to any one of the 17 versions. I can pick up any book, start reading, and thinking, damn, he really got it. And you can pick up the book anywhere and do that. You can do that across all 17 books. So I think that once people realize you were predicting this stuff long in advance, I think you'll do well.
Well, we didn't do so I understand your point. It took some convincing. I didn't know what you guys were up to, but when I had to go back and reread everything that I wrote, and again, 4,000 pages is a lot of reading, let alone, editing. I saw trends that I hadn't noticed, that I had forgotten about. I saw there were whole chapters on subjects that I had forgotten about. And I thought, oh, you really wrote that? That's what I was watching for. Also was stuff that I just got dead wrong. And there were some things, but there was nothing major. There was about 3 or 4 years ago, I predicted an energy crisis that I think it might have been when the pipeline got blown up, and I was predicting Europe would freeze their asses off, and they had a mild winter, which kind of got them off the hook. And then, of course, I've been predicting the market's correct for 10 years now, at least. The 2015, it looked like we were hanging off a precipice, and then 10 years later, we were hanging off a higher precipice. So I don't know how they pull it off, but we're still in treacherous territory. So,
well, here's what I would like you to do. And I will say I've got an enormous amount of appreciation for you, because you discuss a lot of topics, but you think for yourself. Ray Dalio has come out with the 6 stages of collapse.
yeah, I've read it.
Comment on what he had said in the last month, because he said when Rubio went to the Munich Security Conference, it said the U.S. can do anything we want. There are no rules. And the Prime Minister of Canada said, okay, we're in a new era with rogue states. Ray Dalio came out and said, okay, that's it. Okay, that's stage 6. And the collapse happens soon and suddenly after that. And certainly, I think what Trump has done in Iran is going to accelerate that collapse.
Seems that way, doesn't it? It's disturbing too, because I don't think Trump wanted to do it. I think Trump was pushed into it against all of his instincts. I don't think.
Nah.
Say, correct that. No. What's that
Bob,
mean?
please. Yeah.
Okay. Bibi went to the White House on February 11th, and he reminded Donald that Bibi had all of the videos and photographs from Epstein.
Right.
And he said, well, Donald, I would really like you to attack Iran, or alternatively, we can release these files.
Well,
this
I don't know.
war.
I don't know how he
But,
did it, but that certainly would be consistent with what I saw happen.
well, tell a story about how you used Epstein in one of your books, one of the titles.
Oh, so one year I wrote Epstein didn't kill himself as the title, and Amazon booted it. Amazon rejected it and froze my account. So I uploaded all 17 volumes this year. So it was funny. I have to write a dean's report, and I wrapped up my research group about a year ago. And so in theory, my dean's report would be uninspired. And then I realized I published 17 books this year, so I really can't say that it was an uneventful year. But one of them in the middle, I wrote Epstein didn't kill himself as the title, and Amazon locked up the account. And
Well, it was funny. If you remember the sequence, you got in touch with me and said, "Do you have any idea of what I've done wrong?" Because Amazon didn't actually say what you'd done
they
wrong.
don't tell you.
They just said, "Okay, sorry about it. We can't publish this book." And what's really funny to me, this was after 16 books. Okay, 16 books worked fine. And at the 17th book, when you got it subtitled with the word Epstein in it, all of a sudden, Amazon says no go. And if you remember, I got back to you and said, you need to change the title.
I think that's right. We were just guessing. And there was this threat of, you'd never publish again if you didn't fix the problem without in any way telling us what the problem was, right? And so we just took a flyer on it and said, okay, let's change the title to something generic, and we did, and then it went right through. But it's that version, that book is still on my publication docket. It's still showing as blocked. It's still
really?
When I go to the KDP file, in my dashboard that shows all the books, there's still one there that I couldn't figure out how to delete the thing and then re-upload it, and so I just started a new book and got a new ISBN number, and the original one, which was identical in every respect except for the title, is still showing up as got a big red blocked written on it.
Well, here's what's beautiful. You wrote 2 books that were identical, except for one word. And that word was Epstein. And to the extent that, I love good conspiracy, to the extent that it never occurred to me that Amazon was bought and paid for too. But obviously they are.
So Amazon's father, Jeff Bezos' father, is some sinister figure, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Epstein's and Bezos, all these guys come from positions of power. It's really an interesting problem. Who is Bezos' father? Some deep stater.
That goes to Whitney. That goes to Whitney Webb's work, right? I mean, dissecting all this and tracing the org charts.
Could be. I certainly read a ton of her stuff over the decades. To defend Amazon, one could make the argument that they were saying that the title is misleading because it would get the person to buy a book under pretense, and the book really wasn't about Epstein besides about 25 pages of the 300 pages. So one could argue that Amazon's AI just picked up on the fact that the title had a very low overlap with the content of the book. One could defend them with that.
Well, strange enough, are you aware TikTok will do the same thing now?
Oh yeah.
If you send TikTok and just put in the word Epstein in any context, you'll be blocked.
Well, it certainly seems to be missing from Twitter now that we've bombed the shit out of Iran. So this all troubles me. I used to wonder why you'd post articles on 321 Gold that were were not the most supportive of Israel's conquests, right? And I used to, I was really pretty agnostic on Israel, and then over the years I started to notice that they were more and more of a problem. And then, as you know, and as Mike knows, I got into it with some of the what I'd call the rabid Zionists, and they kind of pissed me off. And it's, but I decided, I was at a fork in the road. I decided, do you want to up your game and become Candace Owens Jr., or do you want to sort of step back and let them fight? Now, it's at some level, I do not want to go fight those guys just because it seems like a waste of my time. It doesn't feel like I'm going to get anywhere if I do. So, Mike's watched this evolve. I used to not touch Israel at all on podcasts. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, it wasn't until after last summer, right when that whole thing exploded with Tucker. Speaking of that, with Netanyahu, I might as well ask you guys, where do you think he is, or where is he in your view?
Missing.
Why?
He's missing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you're going to like this, Mike and Dave. I was in combat for 20 months, in real combat. People were shooting at me, I was shooting at them. And I had also gone through Army basic intelligence training. And the instructor in the course, who was absolutely brilliant, came in and he said, okay, I'm going to tell you in 15 minutes what we're going to spend the next 12 weeks teaching you. Open your eyes, learn to think, learn to ask questions, and ignore everything you're told. You do not need experts or gurus. There is a video that you both have probably seen of the council in Israel of the leaders, and they've got like 5 or 10 generals, and some guy in there who has replaced Benjamin Netanyahu. In combat, you do not look for intelligence to be beyond the call of information. I'm sorry, that's poorly put. You're making life or death decisions on tiny bits of information. So if you find that video, and if you look at the faces of the generals, ignore what's said and look at them, and they all look like they were constipated. I have never seen so many Israelis who had an obvious problem. And quite bluntly, it's pretty simple. If Benjamin Netanyahu was alive, he would be seen by now. There's so much information that Israel and the United States are lying about this war. I controlled hundreds of airstrikes and artillery missions, and I can tell you, you cannot have the number of strikes that Iran has made on U.S. facilities without killing a lot of people. Now, whether it's hundreds or thousands, I don't know. But saying that 13 Americans have died is absolute rubbish. It's absolutely impossible. So we've got a situation where I think Israel is saying 23 people have died, and Iran has admitted several thousand people have died in Iran. And I believe the Iranians are telling the truth, and I believe the U.S. is lying through their teeth. And that would include a strike on either the Abraham Lincoln or the Gerald Ford. Iran claims they've done that, and the U.S. says they haven't. However, there isn't a single picture showing that the ship is still intact.
But wouldn't he have moved out of the country, Netanyahu, put him in Europe or a safer location than to be in Israel?
But that's okay. Why would you hide that?
I don't see how you move the general of a country out of the leader of a country out of the country. That strikes me as that doesn't strike me as a viable model.
I don't think so. However, they could have done that and then rigged some kind of video pretending he's in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. But it's very indicative that the United States has been very quiet and Israel has been very quiet. And I would highly suggest that Iran is doing far more damage to Israel and to American facilities than either side is saying. And I'm seeing Trump actually begin to panic.
Well, not if you.
I keep having this thought. I keep having this thought that is, on the one hand, I think extremely logical. On the other hand, I feel extremely guilty about it. And that is that we have fought many wars over many decades in which they're basically for the populace reality TV shows, and we're watching it on TV. And like, remember the Gulf War I, where every night on the news you'd see Schwarzkopf and he'd show some cool bridge being blown up, and the guy would be driving the truck across the bridge, would get blown up, and it was always it was so sanitized, and it was entertainment level of war. And I keep getting this feeling that one of these days that the horrors of war are going to come home, and I keep getting this feeling that maybe this is the war where it's going to happen, where we're all of a sudden, going to go to the gas pumps and there won't be fuel, or we're going to go to the store and there won't be food, something like that. I don't know what it's going to be, but on the one hand, I think it would be good for us to see the horrors of war, just like when Sherman marched on Atlanta. When sort of asked about it, he said, I needed to bring the horrors of war to the South. I needed to do that. And I somehow get this feeling that we've had too many of these wars that we suffer because we don't realize that the inflation is coming from the war and stuff like that. But it needs to get more real for us so that people can stop cheering on us bombing Iran, for example. And it feels like a bad thought, right? It's something wrong with the thought, but
yeah, I don't think they actually are cheering. You're going to have some great quotes for this year's book. Would you like me to give you a great quote?
Go for it.
Okay. This is from the commander of the IRGC Navy.
I've got this quote already. Go ahead.
Yeah, come on.
Go ahead.
I wanted to give it to you. I've been saving it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's about the destroyer. Go ahead. It's a great quote.
We guarantee the security of any oil tanker under any flag that can convince an American destroyer to escort it through the Strait of Hormuz.
He's trolling us.
Oh,
it was.
But he's got a sense of humor. He's funnier than you are.
I know. Nothing like joking about that. And then there's these debates about who's got ammo and who doesn't, right? So on the one hand, they Trump will go on TV and he'll say, we've destroyed everything and there's no military left and there's no anything left, and I don't believe that at all. I also don't think you beat people on their own country, in their own homeland, in a war. They will fight. They will fight to the death. It's their home.
Well, strange enough, and because I was a fighter pilot, really bomber pilot, controlled a lot of airstrikes. After World War II, the British went in and they studied the effects of the aerial warfare against Germany, and they concluded that it made the war last longer. Now, to give you some numbers, in 1965, North Vietnam had somewhere between 17 and 20 million people. It took 550,000 Americans and dozens of squadrons of fighter aircraft and attack aircraft and B-52s to lose that war. And when you compare that to Iran, which is twice the size of Texas and has 92 million people, the idea of waging a war against Iran is simply ludicrous. It is insanity. And whoever dragged Donald Trump into this, I believe that we're at a tipping point, and I think the U.S. is going to get booted out of the Middle East entirely. And this is the end of two empires. It's the end of the U.S. empire, and it's the end of the Zionist empire.
I have no trouble with that theory. I think and the other thing is some claim, maybe I'm listening to too much Douglas McGregor or something, but some claim that the Iranians haven't even used their good stuff yet. They're really they're bleeding us with weaponry that they're getting us to blow, $50,000 drones out of the air with $20 million missiles, and that they haven't begun to hurl the real serious stuff.
That is absolutely correct. And the Iranians, now in a war, truth is always the first casualty.
Yes.
But Israel tends to lie about everything. And everything that I've seen about Iran is they tend to tell the truth, even when it makes them look bad. But we've got this situation. I believe they have thousands of very destructive missiles, and they're saving them. And nobody understands this, and nobody addresses this. This is existential for Iran. It is
Absolutely.
not existential for Israel, and it's not existential for the United States. And Donald Trump, can I give you the best Donald Trump quote?
Yes.
Donald Trump went to the Chinese, and he wanted Chinese assistance in opening the Strait of Hormuz. Donald, wait a minute, pal. The Chinese already are taking ships through the Strait of Hormuz. They got free passage. You're never going to get the Chinese to help you.
Right. I know. This reminds me of a war that's too fresh still, where we thought we could somehow, I don't know what win means, but we thought we could somehow get the upper hand. Let's call it the upper hand, because you don't win wars, right? No one wins war. The last war to be won that I can see was World War II, where the Soviets won the war because they got half of Europe. But the war in Ukraine, we just didn't pay any attention to the fact that we wanted to do what we did, but Putin just could not let us do it. It was not a choice for him. Well, we didn't learn from that story either.
It's existential, and when you're fighting for survival, you're going to do whatever it takes to do. From a military point of view, I will tell you, I have been absolutely amazed, and it's absolutely correct. In the opening minutes of this war, Israel and the United States devastated the leadership of Iran. However, there was one guy who said, I know what they're going to do, and we've got to be prepared for that. And he separated the country into 31 different states or 31 different communities, and each of them operates independently. Now, there is a reason in international law you are not allowed to kill the leader of a country you're at war with. It's a violation of international law, and it always has been. You got to have somebody who could surrender. So if you kill all the leadership, there's nobody left to surrender. And one of the Iranian generals said, okay, we don't need one country with one set of leaders. We need 31 pieces operating independently. It took less than 30 minutes for the first missile to be fired from Iran. From a military point of view, that's absolutely staggering. If you go back to June, it was a surprise attack. The Iranians were not prepared. They were devastated, and it took days for them to react. This time, they were ready in 30 minutes. Now, you've got to have your cigarette lighter handy and a poke stick ready to light. So when you get attacked and you want to fire off a missile, you got to take your cigarette lighter and light that fuse, take it over to the missile, light it, and off it goes. They did that in 30 minutes. That's amazing. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be written about this. Iran has the ability to destroy every country in the GCC.
What was the point of last June then, Bob? In the 12-day war, because the United States claimed they destroyed the nuclear facilities, and then Iran bombed an empty military base, and that seemed to be it. So, looking back on that and where this is at now, what was the point?
It was a game. Now, as a pilot, I can tell you, no aircraft overflew Iran during that war. All those attacks on the nuclear facilities were launched from destroyers or submarines, and they were not dropping B-2 bombs. You could have shot down a B-2 bomber with a BB gun. It's a big, fat target. And there's no way in hell B-2s were flying over Iran. It's absolutely impossible. So that war was a defeat for Iran in the first few days and a tactical victory. After that, the United States went to him and said, hey, we've got to have a ceasefire. And of course, they did exactly the same thing to Iran that Ukraine and NATO did to Russia time and time again. And this time, the Iranians didn't fall for it. So when the Iranians say, we've got some badass weapons and we're going to keep fighting, that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, what's amazing to me, this has been far more catastrophic in terms of taking oil off the market than it was in 1973. But in 1973, the price of oil quadrupled, and right now it's gone up 25 or 30%. The world is in for an economic shock here shortly when they wake up to the fact that Iran holds all of the cards. There's going to be a sea change.
Let me ask you both something then, Dave.
Can I give an alternative theory as to what happened in that 12-day war? I hate to call something a 12-day war, but my alternative theory is that Trump reached out to Iran and said, we're going to throw some token shit at you and don't shoot it down. And Iran said, we're going to go after an irrelevant military base. Don't shoot anything down. And they agreed that no one would get seriously damaged. And then they could turn to Israel and say, now shut the fuck up.
Well, Israel went to Trump and begged Trump to manage a ceasefire. And I'm absolutely certain they're doing the same thing now. But the Iranians are not so stupid. They're not going to fall for it this time. I don't tend to agree with you. It was a game. It was a Japanese theater. And everybody was acting their part. But the Iranians fell back and said, okay, now we know these guys are serious. They want to destroy us. So we need to get prepared. And I believe they are prepared.
Well, the other thing that I took from that, not that I'm an analyst by any stretch, but do you remember during that time that Trump was calling for the people of Tehran to evacuate? And I don't know
Right.
if that was a psychological game, a message to those people to attempt to topple their own regime, because it's far cheaper to do it that way than to send any type of foreign military in, right?
Yeah, but it never works. Okay.
Well, what would we do if someone told us to evacuate, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We'd get so goddamn mad, right?
Right. Well, everything they did, including the assassination of the supreme leader, if you really want to piss off a bunch of religious people, kill their leader. That pisses everybody off. And he knew it was coming, and he deliberately set himself up to be a martyr.
Exactly. And he had some like prostate cancer or something too. He was on the way out, I think, and I so I it so I don't think Trump wanted to do any of this. He's got all sorts of flaws. He's got tremendous numbers of flaws. But I really do believe that he was not he wanted to be an anti-war president, and I think he got bullied by blackmail, by threats against his family, by whatever, by the darkest interpretation I have is that Trump, when he started his second term, said, "Look, I can either spend the next 4 years fighting AIPAC the whole way, which means I'll get nothing done, or I can side with them and do what they want and humor them and get other parts of my agenda done." And then what he's discovered is that he's had to do things. But Brett Weinstein and Tucker did a couple interviews. One of them I watched, and they both.
Is that the recent
agreed.
one, Dave? Is that the recent one from like last week?
There's I think there's a couple recent ones actually, but the critical thing is they both said, look, this move of bombing Iran had a huge probability of destroying his presidency. There was just no upside in it for the Donald.
No, that's wrong.
Okay.
It's 100 times worse than that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is the biggest geopolitical mistake by any president in American history. There is no upside, and there's 100 ways it's going to fail. Someone did a piece, and you may be familiar with it. Somebody did a piece recently, and they were talking about how the Roman Empire collapsed. And Rome was at their peak, this like 388 something, and they were the big bad people in the world. And they wanted to attack some country, and some shit for brains little country nearby said, nah, we're not going to be part of it. And as soon as that happened, the other country said, well, fuck, we don't want to fight that war either. And Rome obviously was a paper tiger, and exactly the same thing is happening today. We just had the first leadership of any politician in the United States today with a guy saying, what? Wait, I didn't sign up for this. This is an illegal war. There's nothing we can win, and I resign. Okay, to listen to Pete Hegseth and the vice president and Rubio and Radcliffe, I'm thinking, God, what are you guys smoking? You were absolutely out of. Jeff Sachs was against it. Mearsheimer was against. Ritter was against it. McGregor was against it. I was against. I've been making jokes for the last 2 months saying that a Girl Scout troop with 15 girls in it, 4 slingshots, a BB gun, and a bow and arrow could shut the Gulf of Hormuz. Now, if I know that, how come the president of the United States allowed it to happen? It's because he's getting bad information.
And I think he probably got lulled into a complacency by the Venezuelan move, that he thought, oh, we can just do that again. And there was, again, in no way it disagrees with your bad information model, but I think Venezuela, I think Maduro knew that being an ex-dictator is a fatal job description, so he basically said, okay, take me, get me out of here. There's nothing about the Iranians which tells me that I can fathom that tells me they're in any way ever going to give up. They're not going to concede anything.
So let me add two things. One, Bob, you're referencing Joe Kent resigning today, right?
Right.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
He stepped down in his role in intelligence, and there's a long letter out there on the internet, his resignation letter. But here's the thing that I can't get my head around with in regards to this. And I had Colonel Larry Wilkerson on last week, and we were talking about this. How do you have you're running war games, you got billions of dollars in intelligence spent on this. I can't believe it's just being complacent, and I can't believe that there's stupid people that are making these decisions. But maybe I'm giving them credit. Maybe I'm giving these people they're smart. I'm thinking they're smarter than what they are.
I think AIPAC has a firmer grip.
But see, I don't think it could be that simple. I don't think it could be that simple either, though.
No, it really is. Okay, this is Trump's son-in-law and Whitlaw running the show, and they are utterly clueless, and they're totally biased. Now, a question, how I like to ask questions.
Yeah, Dave, you answer these today. Dave, you answer these questions because I always get quiz. So, Dave, give the questions to Dave.
Okay.
Okay, Dave, how does a nuclear armed state with 9 million people defeat a non-nuclear state with 92 million people?
I get a nuclear armed state with 350 million people to do it for you.
Not if Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the reason we don't give loaded guns to 5-year-old children.
It's distressing to watch this play out, even though I've been waiting for the spark, right? So when the system is out of whack, and our system is out of whack in so many ways.
Hold on, Dave. Before I want to stop you because I want to go there, but I want to ask one more thing in relation to this direct conflict. Russia and China. And Dave knows where I'm going with this because you're hearing some people on the other side saying it's a Russia-China-United States merger. I want to get Bob's take on what I'm about to say with regards to that. Russia, China, United States are going to form an alliance going forward, and this is all part of this is the plan.
This is against
Go ahead.
No. I've been on too many podcasts with Mike. Go ahead, Bob.
Here's the deal. When you've been around for a long time and you met a lot of people, you realize how stupid people are. Okay, at every level. And I've met billionaires and come from the meeting thinking, damn, was that guy as dumb as he sounded? And the fact is, people are stupid and they make decisions based on really bad information. And Jared Kushner and Witkoff are the guys calling the tune, and Susie Wiles. And these guys are all biased. Okay, this war was planned 40 years ago. Go to Google and put in clean break from the peace process. It talks about the clean break from the peace process. No more peace process. We go attack everybody who's our enemy. Now, if you go to right after 9/11, who was the general who went to the White House and was told the U.S. was going to attack 7 countries?
Wesley Clark.
Wesley Clark. Okay. Now, the amazing thing is, everybody wants to talk about Iran. Everybody wants to talk about a nuclear weapons program. There is no nuclear weapons program, and we've known that, and it hasn't existed for 23 years. But they want to be talking about Iran and ignoring Israel and the greater Israel project, which is to consume every other country in the Middle East. Now, I believe that there are people running Israel who think Armageddon is a really great idea, and we'll see.
So those are the end of days crowd, right? Those are the guys who actually think the Messiah is going to show up when the world basically.
No. What do the Christian Zionists believe?
I think the Christian. I don't know what the Christian Zionists believe because I don't understand what a Christian Zionist is. So
okay,
I haven't been able to get a good answer to that.
It started around 1830. And there was a preacher who was a Christian, and he said, we need to bring the Jews back to Jerusalem. We need to rebuild the third temple. And when we do that, Jesus Christ is coming back to earth, and all of the good Christian Zionists are going to get raptured to heaven, and they're going to get to go up and watch soap operas with Jesus.
So that's not inconsistent with what I just said. Yes, go ahead.
No, it's totally inconsistent. So they believe Jesus Christ is coming back, and everybody who's not raptured gets zapped. Okay, you're gone. Now, the Jewish Zionists, and this started around 1890, the Jewish Zionists said, we need to go back to Jerusalem. We need to rebuild the third temple, and then Messiah will come back. Now, the Jewish Messiah is not Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
The Zionists believe Jesus Christ is in hell getting boiled in shit. Okay, so there's this giant conflict between Jewish Zionism and Christian Zionism.
Okay,
both of them support the Jews coming back to Jerusalem, but the Jews say when the Messiah comes, everybody who's not Jewish becomes a slave to us.
Okay.
So take your pick. Okay, if Jesus comes back and you're not a Christian Zionist, you don't get raptured, you get zapped. If Messiah comes back and you're not a Jewish Zionist, you get to become a slave.
Does Huckabee believe, for example, that story, or is Huckabee just a
100%. 100%. Okay.
So he believes that. Jesus Christ.
He's shithouse rat crazy.
Well, Tucker sure showed him to be a grifter.
What is Bob? What is Russia and China's role in all this? Because what I asked earlier, I've heard other people say, there's an alliance forming between the United States, Russia, and China through all this.
I totally reject that because the Russians trust Donald Trump exactly as far as they could throw him. They've been lied to. They've been cheated. There are tens of thousands of dead Russian soldiers who wanted to believe NATO and wanted to believe Trump, and Trump lied to them. The Russians and Chinese are doing exactly the same thing with Iran that NATO and the United States is doing with Zelensky in Ukraine.
They're making sure that they can oppose us with everything they need.
Right, exactly right. And some of this, and of course, when you do your book, I want credit for telling you about that quote.
Which quote? The one about which quote? You gave me several quotes
about the Navy IRGC guy.
No, I already had it. I'll
Come
give
on!
you credit.
I've been saving that for days.
Well, you got to get up early to beat me to the quotes. I'll happily give you credit. You got a lot of quotes this year. You were useful. As I remember, one of them was when we were publishing the books. You said, "Just don't fuck up the next one." And then the other one was the other one I remember really well when I said something. I was having difficulty with something, and you said, "I hate it when you whine."
Okay,
you're my moral leader.
Mike, look at your chalkboard and tell me who's leading.
Bob is. So okay,
well,
so
it's not the funniest topic.
Bob, how much longer will this go on for?
That's a good question, because I, by the way, moderated a zero hedge debate last night, and there was some sentiment about how long, and I want to hear how long you think. How long does this go on for as a kinetic war? Forget about the aftershocks, which could be gone for eternity.
Because I want to talk about that. I want to get to the aftershocks after this, because and I also want to talk about
how long does the kinetic war last? Yeah,
until it ends. It's like one of your interviews.
Except less grisly. But if you had to guess, are we going to be looking up years from now, and they're still going to be lobbing shit on it?
I believe that when they say they're saving their really deadly weapons, I think they're going to start using them. They have totally run the United States and Israel and the GCC countries out of anti-aircraft missiles, and I think they're about to get serious. When Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Kuwait and Oman realize they're getting their ass kicked, okay, they're going to say, okay, we quit. I believe the U.S. is going to get booted out of the Middle East entirely. And the Iranians have said, okay, we want an absolute lead pipe guarantee that we're not going to be attacked again. And the only way to do that is to have unconditional surrender. And I believe there will be unconditional surrender. And it will be on the part of Israel and the United States. And strange enough, I think that could happen in the next 6 weeks, 2 months. Europe is feeling the pinch already, and it's about to get serious. And Mike, you're alluding to the follow-on events. Those are going to last for years, and it's getting really serious really quick. And nobody realized that we're going into the growing season in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's no fertilizer coming out. So
that keeps coming up. That keeps coming up. That topic is a particularly good topic.
Well, so,
Catherine Austin Fitts has been emphasizing the fertilizer deficiency and how we're going to have. Now, the other thing is, I've been wondering if Iran's going to really pull out the trump card and hit Israel's desalination plants, because they could destroy the entire country with a couple of missiles.
They will do that. And they will also do the GCC.
And Israel's as exposed to desalination issues as any country, right? Iran gets some of their fresh water from desalination. Israel gets something like 70 or 80% from desalination.
80%, and they have 5 plants, and Iran has hit 1 already. But
is that a warning shot? Is that a warning shot?
I think so. This is the most brilliant military maneuvering I've ever seen. Iran saying, okay, hit me. So they get hit, and they respond back twice as hard. And sooner or later, the United States and Israel are going to say, we're getting tired of getting our ass kicked. There will be an unconditional surrender on the part of the United States and Israel, and it will be the end of the American empire.
You're describing, in some sense, a mild interpretation would be like Reagan pulling out of Lebanon after the Beirut bombings, but that requires a wisdom.
No.
Reagan needed wisdom to say this is not worth being here and getting the hell out.
Nope. Sooner or later,
I've got more no's out of you than anybody.
Yeah, you're failing. You're failing this test, Dave. By the way, I'm glad you're the one answering them today.
I would argue the test is rigged, but go ahead.
Sooner or later, okay, when somebody kicks your ass, you realize, I'm getting my ass kicked. Iran holds all of the cards. They can shut down 80% of Israel's water supply. They can shut down 60 to 70% of the GCC's water supply. They can shut down the pipeline that goes across Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea. The Houthis are now getting involved. Hezbollah's involved. And I'm telling you, go find that video of all those generals in Israel.
Can you send it to me? Do you have it? Can you send it to me? Because I don't know how to find
it. It's out there somewhere. And
so
it's
do you think Netanyahu's dead? Do you think Netanyahu's dead?
I think so.
Because they came up with a video after the fact, but they're saying no, that's a deep fake too.
Well, every video,
you got to prove Netanyahu's okay.
Every video, he's got an extra finger. So there's been 7 videos, and now he has 7 fingers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand.
Or 12 fingers. Excuse me, 12 fingers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. The extra finger.
What about Bob? Bob, what about ground troops? The United States.
Oh God.
Will it happen?
Okay. There's something neither of you know. Actually, very few people know. I took the last private airplane into Iran prior to the Shah getting overthrown. Somebody contacted me, and the Shah's twin owned an airline that flew the expats from Tehran to Abadan. And she bought a used F-227, and they needed a ferry pilot to take it to Tehran. So they got a captain in the F-227, and he and I and a mechanic and my pregnant wife flew into Tehran in December of 1978. The Shah left in early February of 1979. And the key is Iran is totally mountainous. You could not possibly attack Iran with ground troops. In 1965, the guys that I went through boot camp with in 1964 were the first guys to land in Da Nang on the beach in March and April of 1965. There were 6,500 of them. So when you're talking about 2,500 or 3,000 troops, that's an absolute joke. They would be cannon fodder. It's as absurd as them putting destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz. It would be like the Marianas turkey shoot in 1944. So there will not be a ground invasion of Iran. It could not possibly succeed. If you remember, I mean, we had 550,000 troops in Vietnam. An arc-light mission sometimes had as many as 27 B-52s. And we were shooting guys who were wearing sandals and PJs, and we still lost the war. The Iranians are very intelligent people. They're led brilliantly, and they're equipped with some of the deadliest missiles I've ever seen or heard of, and they're winning.
What about Karg Island, Bob?
Same thing. Okay? Except I'm going to go over there and I'm going to teach one of those Girl Scouts how to do forward air control. Okay,
Hold on,
and
man.
she'll be in charge.
You keep talking. I got to deal with some dogs here.
Mute your mic, Dave.
I'm gonna mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I got the same problem here. My dog chased his ball underneath the bed. He's sitting here whining. Now, you want to talk about the effects, after effects of the fuel problem?
Yeah. You want to? We'll talk about Carg Island when Dave comes back.
Carg Island, not a chance. Okay, absolutely. You could bomb the crap out of it, but if you bomb the crap out of it, the next missiles are going to take every water desalination plant in the Middle East. Every single thing Israel and the United States can do to Iran, Iran has a solution that's 10 times more deadly.
So why isn't Iran just knocking out the desalination plants now, or are they hoping that? Are they saying, "Look, we're giving you an escape route. Take it"?
Well, strange enough, and that's a really good comment. In combat, you always give the enemy a route out. You always give the enemy a chance to surrender or to leave. Fighting wars has nothing to do with killing people. Everybody thinks the more people you kill, the better off you are. It's bullshit. What you're trying to do is get people to change their mind. And the Iranians are sitting there saying, and they're absolutely correct, you fuck with us, we're going to fuck with you 5 times as much. And they've got the weapons to do it. Sooner or later, the United States is going to realize that's true.
That's like in World War II when I'm trying to see if I can get this story straight. The Germans at some level were more tenacious because of their fear of being overtaken by the Russians, and that they said, look, we got to fight to the death now because you did not want to be a German and caught by the Ruskies, and so they didn't leave them an exit channel there either.
Well, no, the exit channel was to the west. Okay, the Germans wanted to surrender to the Americans.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Begged them to take them. Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, I'll tell you one thing that we need to talk about. I want you to discuss the private credit issue.
Well, yeah. Great segue, Bob.
Okay, I don't know if you're ready for that segue, but go for it. So the private credit issue is blowing up as we speak. I don't think there's any ambiguity that the system is blown up. So private credit, for those who haven't been listening to Mike's podcast every week, is this incredibly opaque. The word private is probably synonymous with fraud, where sort of ostensibly non-bank based credit, which I don't believe, because there's no such thing as non-bank credit, and it's worth. I've seen estimates that are as low as 1.5, 2 trillion, up to say 5 trillion, and it first started to show cracks in the foundation, I think, for me, was when Harvard Asset Management somehow made some reference to interested in lightening up on their private credit positions, private equity positions. And that's when people realized the jig was up, because as soon as one smart group starts heading to the door, the rest are going to head to the door, realizing that the game's over. And so you got these private credit companies like, was it Blue Owl, where they're not just marking down the value of their assets from par to 60 cents on the dollar. They're overnight going to zero, and that tells you therefore that these are suitcase nukes inside the financial system, and they're starting to blow up. And I don't think there's a single person who knowingly owns private credit exposure who isn't somehow desperately trying to get to the door, and there is no door is the problem. There is no exit channel. And they're gating the exits, 5%? They're letting 5% of the people escape per quarter, I think is the number, up to 7% per quarter. And that's just too slow for people. So it's like when you close the banks, people want to get their money out of the banks even more. So I think the entire private credit system is going to blow the hell up. I think the private equity system is going to blow the hell up. And I think we're going to discover that we've got way more leverage in the system than anyone could have fathomed. I think that's my bias. And so I think the end of this cycle is over, and I think that this cycle could be the Ray Dalio cycle. As now, I don't like to give Ray Dalio too much credit because I don't think he's such a great macroeconomist. I don't think he's got great wisdom, but he has at least spoken up for this model from a position of authority, supposedly. So he's kind of commandeered the fourth turning and turned it into a sixth turning model. But so I think the end is near, and I've been saying that for so many years that you shouldn't take me too seriously. But the private credit system, the end is absolutely upon us, in my opinion.
Is this what the war is really all about, then, guys? Is this to deflect from?
No, but it's a parallel system, and when you add 2 + 2, you don't get 4, you get 10. There have been signals for months. If you go back to October 31st, when the Fed dumped money into the repo system, we've had constant infusions of cash. You got the Japanese carry trade blowing up. All of the pieces are burning at the same time. And I think what's happening in the Middle East is going to be the end game.
So they talk about a pin, a bubble looking for a pin, and I think it hit a Patriot missile. The yen carry trade's an interesting problem because I remember when it first started to get headlines and the markets went down about 5%. And then everyone said, okay, well, that was a problem, but now we've solved the yen carry trade problem. And I go, you've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. You've got the entire globe has leveraged on 0% interest Japanese bonds. And somehow that unwound in a week. How can you possibly believe that story? And so, but they've been able to keep it quiet. Not quiet as in unseen by everybody, but quiet off the headlines. And I don't know how they're doing that because I would think that yen carry trade itself would blow the financial system to smithereens.
Well, you've got the Japanese unloading treasuries. You've got the Chinese unloading treasuries. I have argued, and we have yet to see if I'm correct or not, I believe that we're in the start of a 500-year transition with the collapse of the debt-based system of the West and a resurgence of the resource-based system of BRICS. Do you follow Emmanuel Todd?
No.
Okay, you should. Do you happen to speak French?
No.
Okay, I don't either, so I don't feel bad.
Only subtitles.
Let me clarify. It took me 5 years to get 3 years of credit in French. That's how much French I speak.
I can barely speak English.
You're doing a lot better than I am. I mean, my idea of French is ein Bier, bitte.
So here's one for you. If there's boomers out there, I'm going to make you laugh. I can only remember one French dialogue from when I took French, and it's dis donc où est la bibliothèque, c'est tu dois, tu vas, tu suis. Il faut que j'aille chercher un livre. I can remember that That's ALM French. I bet you there's boomers blowing snot bubbles out there listening to this podcast because they go, holy shit. Because one time I was reading an article and the woman who wrote it said, my husband, the only thing he can remember from taking French is where's the library?
Well, you're doing a lot better than I am. I mean, the only French I know is menage a trois. And every time I mention it, I get smacked.
Oh, jeez. So
yeah.
Let's talk about the fallout from this war in relation to gas and energy. And I know, Dave, you listened to what Matt Smith was talking about. Bob, I sent it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it at all, what he was saying in relation to energy shortages and how this is the parallels of this and COVID. And, it feels like another lockdown is coming.
I'm going to say yes. Here's what surprises me, absolutely astounds me. I lived through 1973.
So
and
did I.
You could sit in a waiting line for 2 hours to buy 10 gallons of gas, okay? And the cars burn 2 or 3 times as much as automobiles do today. There was nobody on the road, and the price of oil went from $3 a barrel, $12 a barrel in a few weeks. Now, the amazing thing to me is here, as soon as Trump and Israel attacked Iran, I called all my friends and said, better get your ass down to the gas station and fill up. And that weekend, okay, the first attack was Saturday morning. On Sunday, I drove to the gas station in the hopes of being able to get gas, but prepared for a long line. And I get to the gas station, there's nobody there. And I thought, hell, they're out of fuel. No, they weren't out of fuel. Nobody cared. So there's going to be a moment of reckoning very soon. And you're not going to be able to get fuel for a week because everybody's going to want to fuel their car at exactly the same time. This is a real crisis. It's far worse than it was in 1973 or 1979. And the average person in Europe and probably in the United States, totally oblivious.
So this is the COVID analogy. I remember as soon as COVID showed up I've got emails from January of 2020 where I was talking about it with biochemists who I was trying to understand what I was seeing. And I've got one that says there's something fishy about the story. I can't figure it out, but this virus isn't acting normal. And then I remember watching the markets not respond to it. And I go, we're about to put a total hammerlock on the entire global economy, and the markets don't care. And I couldn't figure that out. And so I was at the store loading up shopping carts full of stuff. Because I said, this a week from now or 2 weeks from now, whenever, this is not going to be possible. And so there was this funny moment. So we were doing lockdown. There was 4 of us in the house plus dogs. And I didn't know there would be 4. I thought there'd be 2 of us. And so I said, can you all live with 1 roll of toilet paper a week, which is the currency of lockdowns, right? Toilet paper. And I said, can you live with 1 roll of toilet paper a week? And my wife said, well, I thought you prepared for this. I said, I'm just doing an inventory here. I didn't know there'd be 4 of us. Can you live with that? And everyone said, yeah. So I went into the garage and I came back and I said, well, based on my math, we've only got enough to last 2.5 years. And here's something I chastise the average American for. We again, it gets back to this. We've never really suffered from war here. It's always on TV, and I think Vietnam was the closest we came, but it was still, we sent suckers like Moriarty over there to fight our war for us.
Right.
and it never was on our shores. And somehow I think this one's going to find a way to show up here, and even be, sleeper cells that came across the border during the Biden administration. Who knows? But I tell people, I said, if you live in a house and you have the space, there's no excuse for not having a couple 100 pounds of rice and, a couple of containers of Morton salt and some bouillon cubes and, just calories. Just you're not going to survive the apocalypse, but it would be a shame to be gnawing your arm off because you didn't have enough food to last a month, right? That would be just ridiculous. And
that's exactly where most people are. And I should make at least one comment about that slur about Vietnam. Don't blame me. We were winning when I left.
Yeah, he's trying to take the lead on me here. Last night when I moderated the Zero Hedge debate, I suggested it was Peter Schiff versus Michael Every on the dollar, and I said I think people who are watching this should have to drink a shot every time the word gold comes up.
But damn, I think that's the first time it's been mentioned on this.
I know.
Let me take a shot.
What are your thoughts then on either internally or some type of false flag? And this is what Bob, did you listen to that conversation that Matt Smith that I sent you?
Yes.
What did you think about it? What he was talking about, the fear tactics and COVID and how they have to do something again to scare people.
Well, they're doing that, and to the extent that I can't remember who the CIA director was. We got a whole list of quotes, but the CIA director who said, "We will know the CIA has succeeded when everything."
Casey.
Okay, when everything Americans believe is false, and we're there. The amount of disinformation, the number of fake AI videos now, it's absolutely staggering. Someone or some group is deliberately trying to confuse people. And the strange thing is, I've actually been quite surprised because all of those people crossing the border under Biden would make great terrorists. And there have been very few attacks that you could talk about terrorism. There was a event here a week ago where a guy drove a truck into a synagogue, but his family had been killed in the Middle East, and he had a very real complaint against Jews.
Well, you also don't know if those are false flags, because you can't put it past Israel to blow up a few synagogues to make their point, right?
Yeah. If you ever see a synagogue blown up, you need to look at the nearest Jewish people. I think there could be a false flag. I'm certainly seeing things that appear to be absurd. The FBI comes out, says Iran is threatening to attack California, which is patently absurd. Gavin Newsom is doing far more damage to California than Iran ever could, and Iran happens to be on the wrong side of the ocean.
And that maxim that says never stop your enemy when they're destroying themselves.
Right? Exactly. Okay. I mean, I hate to say it. The Iranians are sitting back. It's illegal for them to drink wine because they're Muslims. They're sitting back toking a wrap your own, just laughing at the United States. And guys are saying, did Trump really ask the Chinese to open the Strait of Hormuz? No, that's some conspiracy theory.
But people would say that he's
Well,
playing 5D chess, though, Bob. You would have people that are literally saying that this whole thing is, taking on the elites, and that Trump's in control of everything that's going on. You've heard all that.
All you have to do is listen to Donald Trump for 2 minutes, and you are dealing with a dumb son of a bitch.
so who'd you vote for?
Nobody, none of the above. However, and I hate to admit this, I'm willing to admit error. Kamala Harris is looking better every day. It's so bad, I'm even hoping Hillary comes back.
Do you think it matters,
Oh
though?
God,
Do you think?
you're past me?
But do you
No,
think?
I can't. No, I can't.
But here's the
Let's
thing.
go.
Here's the thing with all that. Do you think it even matters who sits in that chair anymore, Bob or Dave?
Well, it hasn't. Look at Obama, liberal Democrat, bombed 7 Muslim countries, right? When you elect a liberal Democrat, you're at least supposed to get a guy who's supposed to not be a hawk.
Bob?
So,
Well, we've gone so far overboard. If you look at the Roman Empire or the Spanish Empire or even the British Empire, when they started getting involved in meaningless wars, it destroyed the empire. Every empire commits suicide when they think they're rich enough to fight meaningless wars. And Donald Trump has just stepped into the cesspool of all cesspools. And I think he was dragged into it kicking and screaming. And I just wish he would change the name to Epstein Fury.
or APAC Fury.
Now, Epstein Fury is better, except he won't be able to put it up TikTok.
How fast? We didn't even talk about the fertilizer or the rise in gas prices. How quickly this could spiral?
When's it going to show up?
Well, you're going to see the fertilizer problem show up in the next 60 days because it's planting season. There are people who are going to starve next fall, and there are people who are going to freeze to death. And that's not only true in the United States, it's true in Europe. Some of the things like blowing up the 3 Nord Stream pipelines. Dave, are you aware that there were 4 pipes in the pipeline? There was Nord Stream 1 and there was Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 1 was 2 pipes, and Nord Stream 2 was 2 pipes. And I can prove logically it was the United States military that blew them up.
Wait, it wasn't a Ukrainian on a yacht? Are you really trying to tell me that story's not true?
The United States military did it, and I can prove it.
Well, it might have even been a micro nuke that did it. I'm right. I mean,
if there were 4 pipes, how many were blown up?
Well, I don't know how you'd blow up 3 without blowing up the 4th. Well,
you don't have to blow up the 4th. It's a different pipeline.
Well, I thought they were proximate to each other.
Well, they were, but not that close. The strange thing is, and nobody ever talks about this, there were 4 pipes. 3 of them were blown up, and Germany could have Russian natural gas being pumped to them in a week. And the chancellor of Germany was in the White House and gave permission to blow up Nord Stream.
There's a self-destructive move right there. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's suicide.
Totally.
Let me ask.
Germany's committed suicide in so many ways, right? Germany seems to be. It's almost like they're trying to relive the 1918 to 1921 period where they're destroying their economy. I don't know why they're doing it.
The Brits and the French are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, you said this earlier that you expect the war to stop in 6 weeks. So do you? This is what Matt and I were talking about too. So you don't see it expanding out into Europe
There's
outside
no
of the region?
reason to.
Hmm.
There's no reason to. Clearly, the Iranians know who the enemy is. They've got a very real plan for winning the war, and that's getting the United States out of the Middle East and cutting Israel off at the knees, and they're going to succeed. Now, I didn't say it was going to end in 6 weeks. I said it's going to be obvious in 6 weeks. And there are people that are going to be screaming like stuck pigs. It's very funny to me that if you look at Trump, Trump is in a panic right now. And he hadn't even started.
So Israel must know, because one thing I'm pretty sure is that Israelis are not stupid. Israel's done a fine job of protecting themselves all these years using techniques that I'm not a big fan of. But I had a question I was going to ask you. It's not coming to me.
Well, you got it yet? Oh, well, if you get a chime back in with it.
Pop it out.
Why, Bob? Let me ask you something else then in relation to Europe and then China and Russia, Ukraine. Isn't this a perfect opportunity for China to cut off Taiwan?
There are indications that they may, in fact, want to do that. Now, what Dave and I have been talking about, we never said it outright, there is going to be a massive stock market, bond market crash shortly. Dave had talked about COVID back in January of 2020, but do you remember what happened in March?
We got locked down.
The market corrected briefly.
You could buy silver for $11 an ounce.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, strange enough, I see a massive crash shortly, equivalent to 1929, and then people are going to get upset. This crisis of private lending, private equity is a lot bigger, and everybody's ignoring it, but they just yanked the plug from the bathtub. And it's going to be obvious very soon. And what's happening in the Middle East is just going to make it 10 times worse.
Well, the other thing with that,
and we're also grumpy as shit already. This is what bothers me. We're at a cycle top, and again, I hate to say that because it trivializes it. We're something much, much worse than a cycle top, but we're supposed to be euphoric, and we're not. So I was asked this morning on a podcast, what's the biggest bubble, and I said complacency. I think everyone knows. Everyone knows we're screwed. Yet they all think somehow someone's going to save them.
Because we're in a superhero movie. Because we're in a superhero movie,
right.
Dave. This is
and everyone's wearing their underpants on the
outside. Now it's Alina Habba. Alina Habba is going to be the new Attorney General, and that's the next superhero on deck. Not to start talking about that.
According to Laura Loomer, sounds like she's going to be the next Attorney General. So,
what about the Middle Eastern money that was supposed to be coming to the United States to help reindustrialize? That's gone.
Yeah, that's over.
So
I had a question for Bob. When Iran first started hitting targets in other Middle Eastern countries, at first it was just baffling to me. I thought it was probably Israel doing it as false flags. But then I read an article by Ron Unz, who gave it at least some structure, where he pointed out that these targets were all places that were providing aid to the war effort of Israel. And so that they were not random targets. You were not just picking on their neighbors. They were U.S. supporting facilities.
Well, they were U.S. bases. Okay.
Were they U.S.
And
bases formally? I thought they were just.
absolutely. And
Okay.
that was deliberate and it was brilliant. And Iran came out and said, these countries are not our enemy. However, if you're supporting the American position, we're going to attack those bases. And again, and I'll go back to it, I've seen hundreds of videos of strikes in the GCC, and there is no way in hell that there have been 13 Americans killed. I believe the number is in hundreds and perhaps thousands, and it's being covered up by the Trump administration. When the American public finds this is the first war in my lifetime. The Americans are absolutely dead set against this war, and dozens of serious people were saying in advance, do not get into this war. We're going to get our ass kicked. And they were correct.
What then? So China, Taiwan, they won't move at this point?
No, they could. Okay. Strange enough, the United States has moved the surface air missiles out of Taiwan. And that's the one thing that concerned the Chinese. And at some point, they're going to retake Taiwan. She has said we will, Taiwan will be part of China again. And I believe it, whether it happens now, if there's a market crash, when people wake up, when you can't buy fuel, when you cannot buy food, that would be a great time to yank the rug right out from underneath the American empire. You've got to go back to decline and fall of the Roman Empire. We are going to collapse. Ray Dalio is absolutely correct. He predicted it in advance. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen suddenly.
So, minor adjustment to your time scales. The starvation, as I understand it, is usually in the spring because that's when your stores of food run out.
Well, it's going to be in the fall now.
Which means we're going to be dead by spring then, by that model, right?
Next year.
Well, you want the good news or the bad news?
Give me the bad news. The good news can't be any good, so.
Well, the good news is I'm old.
Yeah, I know.
And the bad news is you're not.
I've got some age on me. One thing I know is people talk about getting out of the country, like Matt Smith going to where's he? Where's
Uruguay?
Matt again?
Uruguay.
My son lived in Uruguay for a couple of years. I'm too old to be moving to other countries. My wife talked about buying a house somewhere safer, and I said, we're in Ithaca, New York. We've got a network of friends here. We could go to some more remote place in Ithaca, but Ithaca's not exactly a gigantic, hub of humanity. And so my inclination is to say, no, we're much more stable here than anywhere else. But after these podcasts are over, I'm going to go to the store and buy some more rice.
Great idea. But it's a rule. It might even be a law. You got to die at something.
Yeah, I know. Red Fox once said all these people who are living these healthy existences, they're gonna be laying in bed dying of nothing. None of us get out of this one alive. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
But don't you think?
How old are you, Bob? You're what, 85 maybe? Is that a good guess?
Remember the video of Netanyahu?
Yeah. The fake one? So I'll take it you're 90 then.
Nah, I'm 79.
Okay.
What do you think the United States will look like by the end of this year?
third world.
You think it'll be that bad? That quickly?
Yeah, let's go back. I'm a big student of history. Okay. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991 and all of the republics broke away and demanded their independence, the Soviet Union had gone through some really rough times. Okay, we forget the Soviet Union lost 27 million people in World War II. Putin's older brother died in the war. War was very real to them, and all of a sudden there was no pensions, no food, no jobs, and they survived.
Right.
If McDonald's shut down overnight, there would be riots in the United States. Okay. There have been situations where the SNAP program couldn't provide SNAP benefits for a few days, and people literally were rioting. The United States is not prepared for what's coming, and it's going to get ugly. I think there will be a civil war of sorts.
We certainly aren't prepared. That's for sure. This gets back. So I opened with this idea that I have this hunch that somehow the horrors of war are gonna find us finally, and and you're describing in detail. I'm not as pessimistic on the time scale as you. I think it'll be more drawn out. I think it'll be more of a slow rotting of the carcass from the head down sort of thing, but not quite so quick. But would I bet on it? Well, I guess I have to bet on it, right?
Well, let me give you some examples. And I wish I could find this article that somebody wrote just a few days ago about the collapse of the Roman Empire. One country flipped the bird to the United to Rome, and then another, and then another, and then another. I admire the Prime Minister of Spain enormously, because when the United States went, Spain said, okay, we want to use our bases there. And he said, absolutely not. We didn't start this war. We're against this war. There is no support for the war. Fuck you. And the horse.
And that was about 5 days ago, wasn't it? Or was that further back?
No, it was right after the war started. And to the extent that I think you're going to see that when Germany and France and the Ukraine, who are all bankrupt anyway, realize the cost of energy just went through the roof and food's going to be a bigger problem than it is now, they're going to say, okay, no boss. When Trump went to NATO and said, we want support opening the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, they were all standing in line telling him to fuck off and his horse. So when it happens, it's going to be a big surprise. But you got these firecrackers going off all over the place, and people don't realize it's connected. I think it is connected.
You ever seen that demo where they have ping pong balls on mouse traps? And then you just throw in one ping pong ball and then they all just go bananas. So the system goes emergent at some point, right? The system goes from being complicated to complex.
Well, certainly you're familiar with entropy, okay?
Yes, I am.
We are absolutely going into, as time moves, chaos increases, and it will get catastrophic far faster than anybody realizes. The entire system is far more fragile than anybody wants to say.
Well, so there's an entropy, there is a thermodynamic model you just touched upon. And that is that civilization basically is using enthalpy, the heat of fossil fuels to overcome entropy. So we bring order where it's not a natural state by using all the enthalpy from fossil fuels. You cut off the fossil fuels, we're going back to disorder.
Bingo.
I said that to an engineer one day, and he said, "I never thought in those terms, but you're right." Yeah.
Bingo.
I don't want to witness this. I kind of enjoyed being, like in the movie Wall-E.
What about Russia Ukraine then? How does that resolve itself?
It's up to them now.
Russia will dictate the terms. The strange thing is Zelensky is through dealing. There have been 1.7 million Ukrainian soldiers killed or deserted, and that compares with a greater number than the French who died in World War I. That war has been catastrophic for the Ukraine. But I'll give you something, Mike, that you wouldn't know that I found really interesting. Do you remember a month or two back when the corruption police arrested Zelensky's bagman?
Yes.
Okay. When they went into his office, they found $25 million in cash. And they found the receipts for $2.6 billion in wire transfers. That whole thing,
my shock face.
Yeah, pure corruption. And sooner or later, the Ukrainian people said, "Hey, we're getting tired of being slaughtered."
What Ukrainian people are you talking about? There's none left.
Well, they're in Germany. No, they're in Germany and Poland.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a multi-generation. The Ukrainian, in my opinion, the Ukrainians should pray that the Russians win because they will have a vested interest in helping Ukraine get back on its feet. I don't think Europe will give a damn about Ukraine because they'll have their own problems.
Strange enough, I will agree 100% with that.
Well, yeah, the other thing we haven't talked about is Cuba. What happens with Cuba? Because you see, they got no power right now as of yesterday.
Because of the crisis, because of the Iran war.
No, because Trump has cut off all the fuel. He won't let fuel from either China or Venezuela into Cuba.
I thought they were getting it from Mexico, Bob. I thought Mexico was somehow.
Well, Mexico too. That's going to be a humanitarian crisis unparalleled in history.
In Cuba?
I mean,
in Cuba.
To shut the country down is patently absurd.
How many people in Cuba?
Mike, you got any idea? I'm going to tell you probably 2 to 3 million.
I'll tell you what, I'll Google it. I
would have thought they would have waited till after the midterms before doing this with Cuba.
I don't even know why they're doing it to Cuba. Someone explain that to me. There's 8.2 billion.
I said between 9.
Excuse me.
9.2 and 9.7. 9.2 and 9.7.
Yeah.
I would have thought they would have.
Why are they doing it? Why? I don't understand.
Well, and why not wait till after the midterms?
But why? Period. What are we doing?
What midterms?
Well, you don't think they'll happen?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I think they'll happen.
I do too. Because they don't want the knives coming out for them. I don't know. We can talk about if the vote matters. That's another conversation. But Cuba,
they don't have to worry about the knives. They have to worry about the hemp rope and the tall oak trees.
Well, here's the thing too. If the Democrats were to take the House and the Senate, they wouldn't stop any of this.
No, exactly. I mean, there's one snake with two heads. We are going to have a revolution of sorts. The debt-based system of the West that's been in power for 500 years since Columbus discovered the casinos in Nassau it's collapsing.
Cuba to me then is just another asset for them to grab, right? Like Venezuela. I have the bigger stick. This is mine now. I'm taking it. And there's nothing you can do about it.
But why? What? That's what I
exactly.
don't understand. It's just a friggin' island that's impoverished.
If you go back to the Soviet Union 30 years ago, they had contests that first place was 1 week free in Moscow. Second place was 2 weeks free in Moscow.
I know that joke. Yeah.
But good question. I mean, that's an exceptionally valid comment. If you win, what did you win?
Well, that's yeah.
Rubio,
when you look at
Rubio wants to run the country. What? Okay, you just destroyed it. Well, why would you want to run it?
I don't know. Why would you ever want to be inside the Beltway? Why would you ever want to have a job in that world?
We didn't even talk about the job layoffs that are coming too. That was you seeing jobs. We didn't even talk about that in relation to AI and tech and.
Yeah. AI is going to be deceptive too, because what we're going to do is we're going to have a big downturn. We're not only going to have AI putting people out of business, regardless whether AI is as good as a human at a job, but they're just going to be put out. But we're also going to have companies failing for good old-fashioned reasons, like the business model's not holding up. And the CEOs, to protect their hide, are going to lay off people, as you do when your business is failing, but they're going to say, we're going to replace them with AI to try to put a positive, increased profit margin spin on what is really just a failing business.
I think that's true. And my impression of AI, it's one of those great theories that doesn't work in practice. It's a solution running around looking for a problem to solve.
I think it'll work on the micro level. I think microeconomics of AI will be potentially okay, but the macroeconomics will not. That's my guess. So I think these large models won't work, but I think AI is a tool like Excel spreadsheets or a tool. I think it'll find homes there. I think you'll have pharmacies that don't have pharmacists, for example.
Strange enough, the medical ramifications are going to be exceptional.
Right.
AI is far better at predicting problems and reading X-rays, etc., MRIs. There are things that AI is suitable for, and the medicine field will certainly see benefits.
But you can, for example, if you go into BJ's Wholesale, which is a Costco-like store, and they've now got robots rolling around the aisles doing inventory, things like that. So, we are going to see increased efficiency. The great concern, and I don't know if this will play out, is that, creative destruction is a fundamental part of capitalism, but if it happens too quickly, you start breaking bones and chipping teeth and things like that. So I do worry that they're going to try to bring in AI and replace workers. It's going to be too fast. So the system won't be able to adjust organically very well. And we already have half the population not working, which is really an appalling reality, right? The labor force participation rate is horrific.
And there's so many bullshit jobs out there too, both in the private and the public sector, where you could literally walk through a company and be like, yeah, this isn't needed.
There was the lady who
get rid of all HR.
One of the banks, someone died in her cubicle and she didn't get discovered for 5 days.
I don't know if I
Yeah,
believe. I don't know if I believe that story though. I don't know about that.
no,
That's a
I
little
think it's
bit.
real.
5 days, you would smell. There's no way.
Well, you'd think the janitors would have discovered her, but
5 days in a cubicle and nobody. I don't. I'm not. I don't know. I buy that story.
well, makes for a good story though.
Right. Exactly. There was probably a lot of clicks.
A lot of clicks, a lot of clicks, just like my dogs.
Where could people find you guys, Dave? I know where they can find you under your desk. Bob.
321gold.com and Amazon. And absolutely, and I'll make a pitch for Dave's books, all of which are up on Amazon now. They are absolutely brilliant books. You can read any of the books in any order, and you will learn something. And I believe 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from now, those are going to be very popular because they give you a snapshot of life and the economy during a very critical phase. I happen to be a giant fan of what he writes, and it's absolutely unique, and I get 10%.
He doesn't even get 10%. He doesn't even get 10%. 10%. You know, it certainly is not about making money. If I did this for the money, I'd be on suicide watch. But I learned a lot from rereading my own writing. I can tell you that much. It really surprised me when I went through 15 years of writing and realized that what Bob was driving at was this idea that you could see the evolution of things occurring. You could see in 2015, for example, that everyone thought we were again hanging off the financial precipice, and that it was due to bad central bank policy. And by 2016, everyone was squealing at the top of their lungs about ZERP and NERP and how idiotic it is. And then the most surreal thing is 10 years later, we're just at a higher altitude where all four engines are on fire and we've taken the plane up to 50,000 feet. And we're going to have enough gas to get to the crash site.
Well, the nice thing about being a pilot is you're always the first one at the scene of the accident.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. We should get you to analyze the Shanksville crash site, by the way. I don't think there's any story in history that's been told correctly at this point. I've really given up on the hopes that you can read a historic. The only hope is that you read history from about 10 different angles and hope that somewhere in there a coherent picture starts emerging, because no one treatise of history. I think, for example, this is going to get me in trouble. I think the October 7th attack was so totally bogus in Israel. They held the door wide.
No,
yeah,
no,
that's not. But that's not. But that's not.
Dave.
At this point, though, that's not. That's not a. I mean, that's out. I mean, that's not a secret.
Well, but
that discussion.
But
you mean
but what?
Just because they knew about it a year in advance? You think it was fake?
Using Israeli sources to tell me that too. Now, what is not fully appreciated is we don't know anything factual about it. We don't have any real wisdom about
how about
who died, who was captive. For all we know, the captives were living in a Motel 6.
Well, let's even. I mean, pivoting off of that real quick, and then I thought we were going to wrap up. But Charlie Kirk, that's another one of those things where we're never going to know.
I'm still working on the Charlie Kirk story.
No, that's too easy. That's too easy.
Is he dead, Bob?
I
had a conversation with someone. They don't think he's dead.
I think he's dead. You can't hide Charlie Kirk. You can't hide Charlie Kirk.
But where was he buried, though? Where's he buried?
Well, there's so many weird things. There was no autopsy, and they're required by Utah law. The FBI did the investigation, and it wasn't a federal crime. There was an airplane that left the airport 15 minutes after the killing. Yeah, there's so much stuff. That was an assassination. I'm convinced he's dead. I'm convinced that was a Mossad operation, and they did it right in front of thousands of people taking videos. And it was, as a guy who was in the military and in war, he was not shot by a 30-06. That's
No,
absolutely impossible.
absolutely not. In fact, we just saw a video from the back, and you can see there's no exit wound. Everything's wrong with the story. And if they really wanted to just get rid of him, they could have done it much more quietly and cleanly. So it was clearly to illustrate to the world, don't fuck with us.
But I don't think it was for his content creation, which I've said on here a bunch of times, and I probably said to you, Dave. I don't believe it was because of his content creation. I think it was more from the political organization that Turning Point has become.
That could be.
And also, I know Israel, but people like point at Israel, but it could have been Republican establishment. It could have been Democrats, collective group of people.
Nah. He was warned. He was told. He knew that was coming.
I think that's right.
Why was he such a threat? Because of the political...
Because he said, fuck you to the Zionists. Here's what's happening. Those people are sociopaths. They're totally out of control. They're the most arrogant people in the world. We were talking about Williamson earlier. Do you remember what he said about the Israelis? Said they're the biggest liars in the world. They lie about everything. And he was there for 2 years. And we need to understand that they are not allies of the United States. They want to destroy the United States. And I think they just succeeded and took themselves with it.
Why is Tucker still able to do what he's doing?
Well, so far, but I mean, he's also reported that CIA's trying to get him locked up.
Mm-hmm. Which would be not very good. But they're losing big players, the thought leaders out there like Glenn Greenwald and Megyn Kelly and Tucker and some lesser known but still important guys like Dave Smith. They're out there and they're ripping the hide off the asses of the Israelis at this point. They're making real progress. And they can't whack them all, I don't think. I hesitate to say that, but I think it's one of the things about October 7th that's very real is Israel's approach to dealing with people who criticize them went completely out to another level as of October 7th. The zero tolerance for the Constitution of the United States, zero tolerance for anyone who criticizes them, and that includes us apparently.
But do you see the fatal flaw to that? There's something everybody's missing.
Well, because it generates more anti-Semitism than you can fathom.
No,
I mean,
no. You can kill mosquitoes with a shotgun, but it's hard on the furniture. What they're doing is so overboard now that it's obvious that you're being fed propaganda.
Right. They've shown their hand. Yes.
Right. They hid it for 80 years, and the world pretty much ignored it until a few years ago. And you can't ignore it anymore. If you can't see that Gaza and Lebanon and the West Bank are genocide, you're blind.
Yeah. And actually, that's the failure of COVID, too, is that the big debate is, did they achieve what they wanted or did they overplay their hand? And it depends on what they wanted. But they certainly alerted the public to wholesale lying.
Right.
Maybe the goal was to just make us feel like we have no control over our lives and to demoralize us. But they might have underestimated our desire to control our lives.
See, I would push back on that.
It was a test, and they did overplay their hand.
See,
if they had just backed away from some of the real stupid stuff,
but here's
they could have gotten away with it.
But this is what Matt and I were talking about when I asked him that same question: was it a success or not? And I would disagree with both of you on this, because the testing mechanisms proved out to work, and if you scare people enough. And people push back, well, nobody would ever fall for the virus again. Of course not. They wouldn't do that. But if you scare them enough, they will demand. They will demand action.
Yeah, that is a very valid analogy. However, there's a expiration date, and now people are waking up to the deadliness of vaccines.
No, but Bob, put that aside. If you scare them enough in a different way, internet goes down, the idea your bank account was zeroed out, you can't get gas. Gas is so expensive, I can't afford to drive a half an hour to work. A combination of all those things, not the virus, no, something completely different. Scare people enough to where they go demand for the government to intervene. That's what happened in 2020.
I agree with that. Okay. But sooner or later, people wake up. If you go back to the fourth turning predicts a totalitarian government, which we certainly have, but at the same time, it suggests that there will be green shoots of freedom and independence and people standing up and saying, hey, you don't have to do this. I was dead set against COVID right from the very beginning. It was obvious to me that it was totally fraud. The mere fact that most people bought into it, what you're saying is absolutely correct. But over time, people wake up.
Yeah, I think that percentage would be exactly the same again in the right scenario.
But we'll see. Absolutely. Yeah. I happen to think people are dumber than bricks.
I agree. Not that I'm some genius, but you now you start to look at all these things in regards to the education system, how they've pushed these kids through. They don't challenge them academically. It makes sense. It's all been done by design.
Well, strange enough, Dave's the best person to comment on this. AI is going to destroy the college system.
It's going to make everybody more stupid. How many times do people go to Grok?
It is a big problem.
How many times do people go to Grok for anything right now? It's amazing to me.
What's the question?
I said, how many times do people use Grok for everything now? Or how Grok is being used for everything.
Yeah.
Well, you can use it as a tool, but the problem is it's being used in lieu of thinking.
Well, that's what always happens, right?
Absolutely.
That's what happens with people.
Right.
Well, let me give you an analogy. I have flown 243 small aircraft across every ocean to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, South Africa, Ghana. And we could navigate with a compass and a watch. Now people have got GPS, and it's actually harder to navigate now because nobody knows how to use dead reckoning. My son uses AI, and there's some just gaping holes in some of the things that he's done. And I've talked to him, said, hey, you cannot change this for thinking. You've still got to think about what's going to happen. He's quite happy to have pages of advice, all of which adds up to bullshit.
And even if it's not bullshit, even if it's not, and if it gets better, it will still cause your brain to not be, you will not be exercising your brain. You will not be using it. You will not be thinking. And so,
bingo.
It's the easy way out.
So we have 50 tenure track English faculty. What is their role in society now? You know, at one point they were training journalists and authors and people how to write and stuff. And I think it's still important to learn how to write, but I don't think the younger generation is going to agree with that. I don't think we were going to do that. I don't think. I really think that we're, and they can't all just study Chaucer, right? They can't all just be scholars. You got to be training people. You can't spend $250,000 to go to college to study Chaucer. And so there's just a ton of things that are going to change very quickly, and it's going to be kind of a future shock.
Guys, I enjoyed this. We gotta do this again. And thank you both for having this conversation on my show. And
wait a minute.
2 hours.
It's Tuesday. I thought we were going to Saturday.
Well, I'm going to be hopping right over to a Zoom call as soon as we get off.
It's Saturday somewhere. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
I look forward to the next one.
Mike,
adios.
You made that up.
Mic drop.
It's not Saturday somewhere. You made that up.
I did make that up. Mic drop.
It's Saturday somewhere.